They called her the janitor with a laugh, like it was a costume she'd chosen for herself. They didn't say it when she passed them in the hallway, though their eyes did the talking, the little twitch that marks someone who's already judged. Her name was Mara. She never complained. She swept the floor. She fixed the copier when it jammed and replaced the burnt-out light in conference room B at 3 a.m. because someone had a deadline. She knew the building better than the building manager did, every squeaky hinge, every faulty outlet, every hidden corner where papers accumulated like dead leaves. She was invisible on purpose. It made getting things done easier. But invisibility has advantages. When people stop looking at you, you get to see everything else. On Tuesday morning, the marketing team threw a mocking little party for their intern who broke the printer again. They piled bagels high on the table, took selfies by the window, and tagged Mara in a joke, a picture of her broom with the caption, "Our cleaning queen." Mara smiled politely. She stacked the empty plate, wiped the crumbs, and tuned her ears to what they said between mouthfuls. Who was sleeping with who? Which client was unstable? Which accounts were thin? And who was taking creative liberties with expense reports? They told secrets like they were candy. Nobody noticed when Mara started collecting those fragments. It was small at first, a throwaway comment about an offshore invoice, a hint that a vendor was overcharging, and a name that got repeated in the background. Lance. Lance, in finance. The guy with the watch older than the company car. Lance who answered to nobody and signed things that made the numbers look softer on paper. Mara was practical. She did the math in her head the way she folded towels neatly, without drama. She knew that small lies gang up on a company the way mold creeps across a wet wall. So she did what invisible people do best. She listened, and then she recorded. Not literally, not at first. She watched where the receipts went when someone left a desk. She noticed when the supply closet lock had fresh scratches. She checked the copier logs because those little machines keep the kind of time-stamped records accountants pretend they don't understand. 3 months in, she had a pattern. The overcharges always ended up in one sub-account. The receipts always had the same vendor name. The vendor name matched Lance's second email. She could have walked into HR. She could have made a scene. She could have taken a selfie with the evidence and posted it for all the mocking people to see. But there's a different power in patience. There's a different kind of victory in quiet precision. Mara started to build a file. Not flashy, not dramatic. A folder on a jump drive, labelled with nothing that would invite curiosity. She photographed invoices, screenshots of email headers, copies of vendor contracts, the tiny corrections Lance made to numbers on shared sheets. She annotated them in neat handwriting, the same way she labelled the shelves in the storage room, so anyone could find the extra staplers. When she needed the building camera footage to confirm an after-hours meeting between Lance and the vendor rep, she asked the security guard for help, the guard who always left his coffee cup by the same post because he liked the view from the back stairwell. He owed her a favour because she once fixed the heater in his booth without making a fuss. He handed her a DVD with a shrug. Everything felt almost too easy when you don't expect it to matter. That's the ironic thing. People who mock the janitor usually don't plan for a janitor who keeps quiet notes and knows the difference between a legitimate invoice and a ghost invoice. The morning Mara walked into the CFO's office, she didn't slam a folder down or point fingers. She didn't shout. She simply set the jump drive on the desk next to a stack of quarterly reports that suddenly looked thin and full of holes at the same time, and she left. She returned to the hallway and continued sweeping as if she'd never done anything extraordinary. The rumour cycle in the cafeteria picked up the story like a fever. Someone turned Lance in. They found ghost vendors. HR is looking into fraud, people whispered. People gasped. They looked at Mara with a new, careful curiosity that was not quite respect, but no longer pure mockery either. Lance didn't get to be dramatic. He didn't have a last stand. The evidence was quiet, precise, cold as an invoice. The auditors called. The finance team did their slow, performative shock. Lance was escorted out of the building with his watch still ticking. He had been part of a network. Fake vendors, split commissions, ghost expenses marked up and redirected. The company froze accounts, sent emails bursting with legal phrases, and scheduled meetings for people who suddenly found their names beside numbers they didn't remember writing. When the HR director scheduled a company town hall to address recent concerns, the room filled faster than any food tray ever had. People looked at each other, feeling the tremor of consequence, as she had done since she was a child. When she rearranged mugs so the kitchen didn't look chaotic, Mara sat in the back, where the light was dimmer and the chairs were warm. She listened to the HR director talk about transparency and integrity, with the kind of solemnity that used to only belong to funeral eulogies. But the real fall came later. A whistleblower interview exposed more than financial mischief. Emails, dredged from archives, showed Lance had been manipulating promotions, smearing colleagues he considered inconvenient. Names that had once been safe suddenly read like a map of people who had lost opportunities because someone wanted to control the path. The marketing intern who'd laughed about the printer moved her chair to the back row and sat very still. The manager who used to compliment others when they passed by could not find the right words. They had been pieces on someone's chessboard, and they finally saw it. No parade was held for Mara. That was the point. The best revenge, if you must call it that, is the one that doesn't need trumpet blares. The company instituted new oversight. The auditors rearranged the accounting library. And for the first time in months, the copier jam slowed down because people weren't using their office hours to hide transactions. Mara kept sweeping. People stopped laughing when they saw her. Some avoided eye contact. A few, including the intern, said sorry when they thought she might not hear. She smiled the same way she had the first day she found their bed of crumbs simple, clean, unembellished. Weeks later, the building manager promoted Mara, not because she had to sweep less, but because someone finally realized the person who knows the building the best is the one you trust to keep it running. She was given responsibility for vendor oversight and inventory. She wrote new procedures. She labeled the supply closet again. But this time, the labels came with code, accountability, receipts, two-person sign-offs. The people who had mocked her were still learning to speak without the nervous laugh. On her first day in the new role, she opened the locked cabinet and took out a small, weathered key she had found when she first started working there. It had no label, no grand story attached, just a key. She put it on her ring, next to her broom hook key, and walked through the hallway like she always did. Only now, when someone said, "Hey, cleaning queen," with that old joke in their voice, she didn't smile. She nodded once, efficient and cold as the edge of a freshly swept floor, and kept moving. Because power, she had learned, doesn't always come from status. Sometimes it comes from knowing exactly where the problems live and having the patience to set them right. And if anyone asks, she'll tell them the truth in 2 sentences. "I only cleaned up what others left behind." It turns out, they left more than crumbs.